All right. Good afternoon, veterans, families, caregivers, members of the Guard and Reserve, and all other veteran stakeholders. Thank you for joining the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency virtual stakeholders meeting. Our aim here at the MVAA is to try our best to keep our veteran community well informed about the benefits and resources they have earned through their service to our state and nation. We hope that meetings like these and our series of virtual coffee hours on Microsoft Teams platform does just that, keeps you informed. This presentation will be recorded for future use, including MVAA social media. Please submit any questions for our presenters by using the Q&A icon on the control bar that appears as you hover your cursor over the screen. Our moderator will select questions that will be presented to each of our guests. If you see a question pop up in the Q&A box that you think is important, then please like that question so we can gauge how many of our listeners would like to hear it answered. We encourage follow-on questions be directed to our Michigan Veterans Resource Service Center at 1-800-MICH-VET. That's 1-800-MICH-VET. Today's panel includes a wide range of guests who are key stakeholders in the veteran arena, including Sanada Adams, Army veteran and Director of the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency, Mr. Alan Nash from the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunities Veteran Employment Services, Garth Wooten, President of the Michigan Association of County Veterans Counselors, and Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin, representing Michigan's 8th Congressional District. I'm Dave Dunkel, Acting Public Affairs Officer for the MVAA, and I will be your moderator today. So first, I'd like to introduce the Director of the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency, Sanada Adams. She was appointed Director by Governor Gretchen Whitmer on June 12, 2019. She served 8 years in the U.S. Army, the National Guard and Reserve, including serving as a Joint Counter-Narcotics Task Force agent for the National Guard. Prior to her appointment as Director, she was an attorney at William Hughes PLLC, assisting veterans with compensation and pension appeals. Director Adams is also the President and founder of WINC, WINC, for Women Injured in Combat. They are an advocacy group for women veterans and women active duty members. She holds a bachelor's degree in psychology from Columbia College and a law degree from Western Michigan Cooley Law School. So, without further ado, Director Adams, how are you today?
Good. How is everyone doing today? I hope everyone's doing well. The sun looks like it's shining. Hopefully that's happening in most of the state. Can you hear me well, Dave?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you fine.
Perfect. I just want to make sure everyone can hear. So this meeting is very important to us. Not only important in the scheme of things, but it's especially important during these times that we've been dealing with across the state and across the nation. You know, I wanted to have a stakeholders meeting because I want to make sure that each and every person that serves veterans in our state understands that this is not a us versus you. This is not a you're over here working with veterans, we're over here working with veterans. I want to make sure that we are working together, one team, one fight, to break down barriers that veterans have in their communities, whether they're dealing with local resources and benefits, state resources and benefits, or federal resources and benefits. So together we all succeed. And so what success looks like is us making sure that we're not only connecting veterans to their benefits and resources that they've earned for their service, but also serving the families of those veterans and the caregivers of those veterans as well. So as many of you may know, the numbers that come out that show where we stand as a state on the federal scale, we call it the GDX, came out recently. And while we haven't had an opportunity to assess all the numbers, I can tell you that our numbers of veterans in the state of Michigan are roughly about 550,000 veterans. What does that mean? That means we still have a lot of work to do. Last year, we fell as the 11th state in the population for, for veterans. And we also, but we ranked very low when it came to the federal GDX. But there are many things within that GDX that we can control. We can control educating veterans and their families on the benefits and education and benefits and resources that they've deserved and earned. We can educate veterans on educational opportunities, on employment opportunities, on home loan opportunities, and all of those different things that can get them connected and get them to be served. We can also advocate for changes within the healthcare community. And those are all things that we have been working hard on doing. And I can tell you that we're starting to see some of those successes. While I can't give you a dollar amount yet because we look at that on a year-to-year basis, I can tell you that the number of people that have been connected to veteran service officers to get their veteran benefits and resources has gone up roughly 300%. So from this same time last year, the number of people that are calling and asking for resources and benefits in our state has gone up at least 15%. So we are doing things, and even in this virtual climate, we are making it happen. And so I wanted to bring you all on so that we can have not only conversations, but that we can learn from each other, because together we can continue to make a difference in the lives of veterans. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Dave.
Well, thank you for that, Director. And now I'd like to introduce everybody to Mr. Alan Nash. Alan is the Acting Veterans Employment Services Administrator for the Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. He's a career Air Force veteran, and he also holds nearly 2 decades of progressively responsible workforce development experience with the state of Michigan, including the administration of the MI Jobs for Veterans State Grant, a program designed to develop job and training opportunities for veterans and eligible spouses who are experiencing significant barriers to employment. So welcome, Alan.
Well, thank you, Dave, and good afternoon to everyone. I could not agree with Director Adams more. It takes more than a single program to be able to provide some of the solutions that our veterans are looking for today. It takes a partnership such as this to be able to do that. And our role in this partnership is employment. The Jobs for Veterans State Grant is first and foremost an employment program, but one with that understanding that more often than not, we'll need to work through some of those quality of life issues before a veteran is actually ready to re-enter Michigan's workforce. One of the strengths of our program is our ability to connect directly with veterans at the community level. We're talking about veterans or eligible spouses that have what we refer to as significant barriers to employment, such as homelessness and incarceration, service-connected disabled, kind of long-term unemployed, or veterans that are just lacking credentialing or training. We also work with 2 special populations as identified by the Department of Labor. That is kind of our younger first-term veterans, usually between the ages of 18 and 24. And that's because they statistically have a higher unemployment rate than their civilian counterpart. And here recently, we started working with Vietnam-era veterans. These are typically older veterans that have found themselves kind of going through a career change later in life. Now, we accomplish our role as an integrated partner within the Michigan Works Agency system. Now, within that system, we have 2 positions. We have one's called a Veterans Career Advisor, and we also have a local Veterans Employment Representative. And the 2 positions work together on the behalf of the veteran client. On the job seeker side, our Veterans Career Advisors, they specialize in working with veterans to help them develop an individual employment plan. This is a very detailed plan that outlines specifically what the barriers are and then what actions need to take place to get the veteran to the point where they are ready to enter the workforce. Once they enter the workforce, or once they're ready, then they'll be referred to our business services teams, which includes our local veterans employment representatives. Our LVERs are not only veterans themselves, but they're also certified as business solutions professionals. And they will work with not only the veteran, but also their case manager to help place them in a training opportunity or into a career opportunity that's related to their career goals or their training. So the two kind of work together in tandem to the benefit of the veteran as well. Beyond just working with our core group, we have 3 special initiatives that we're actively engaged in. One, we have a formal relationship with the Department of Veterans Affairs, the Vocational Rehabilitation and Employment Team. We are the primary employment service provider for Chapter 31 veterans that are within 90 days of accomplishing the rehabilitation plan, and they're looking for job placement services. And we will work again one-on-one with our VRNE clients to get them placed into positions related to their training. We also are working with the Michigan Department of Corrections on a veteran in-reach program. This is basically an employment workshop that we conduct in right now 4 of the facilities throughout the state. And then upon their release, we will then connect them with a VCA for their continued development of their plan. And again, they're to reintroduce them into the workforce as well. And we've going on about 10 years now. We've had a Native American outreach program where we work very close with the tribal leaders throughout the state on helping them meet their own unique challenges with regard to employment. And we're also looking at, we're in conversations with a couple of the tribal leaders to develop an employment workshop within the reservations themselves. So all in all, I think this kind of, again, supports this whole partnership idea of what it takes to get a veteran to where to meet their career goals. And the first kind of, I think the step for anybody who's listening, if you're a veteran or if you're an employer, the first step is to just basically visit one of your local Michigan Works service centers, either identify yourself as a veteran or identify yourself as an employer, and then we can take it from there. Just kind of sum this up a little bit, we are basically a field services, more of a community-minded program that's really kind of used to working one-on-one with veterans, sort of like on that face-to-face scenario. But like the director talked about, times have changed a little bit. So here recently, we've taken some steps to try to take advantage of some of the IT solutions are out there, sort of like with what we're doing right now. The Department of Labor and Economic Growth, the Department of Labor and Opportunity is working with workforce development to kind of develop a job fair platform, which I believe we're going to roll out here in the early spring, early summer. And then we're also looking at solutions as far as how to deliver either veterans orientations or veterans workforce development training, or just engaging with veterans with their counselors on a day-to-day basis. I think the combination of the two will actually only strengthen our position and again help us achieve that high level of commitment to Michigan's veterans as well. So with that, again, I want to just thank the MVAA, the director and the MVAA for the opportunity, and just to kind of continue this conversation, because it's going to take again a group such as this to be able to meet the challenges that we're going to face once the economy kind of comes back on track. So with that, thank you, and Dave, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much for that, Alan. Next up, we've got Garth Wooten from the MACVC. So Garth, he serves as the Oakland County Veteran Services Division Manager and as President of the Michigan Association of County Veteran Counselors. The Michigan Association of County Veteran Counselors represents counties throughout the state. It was founded in 1963 to assist veterans and their families in obtaining any and all county, state, and federal benefits to which they are entitled. Now, Garth has been with Oakland County since 1997, and he's an attorney who served in the United States Navy Judge Advocate General Corps. Additionally, in 2015, he was elected president of the Great Lakes National Cemetery Advisory Council, a position he continues to hold today. And I believe Garth is joining us by telephone today. Are you there, Garth?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you
Can you
just
hear me,
fine.
Okay, great.
I can hear you, Garth.
First of all. All right, thank you. I want to thank you for offering me the opportunity to speak with you about the County Veterans Counselors and the Michigan Association of County Veterans Counselors. The MACVC consists of 149 members from 73 counties across the state of Michigan. Of those 149 members, 133 are accredited with the United States Department of Veterans Affairs. County counselors are the front lines in obtaining benefits for our veterans and their dependents. We sit across the desk and provide them with information about their benefits, assist them in their applications, and then advocate for them to improve the chances of a successful claim. Our ability to develop and submit a fully developed claim increases the likelihood of success and reduces the processing time for a decision. Since we live and work in the community, we're aware of local resources available to assist veterans. Whether we do it ourselves or hand it off to a trusted community partner, the goal of our members is to make sure that the veteran or dependent receives the assistance they need. Now, given the current crisis, most of our offices have been closed to the public and we've had to work remotely. However, improvements in technology have allowed county veterans counselors to be much more effective and independent, even when not physically in our offices. With digits to digits, VetraSpec, and direct submit, we can submit claims directly to the VA from our computers. With our VA issued PIV cards, we can access the veterans file via BVMS and see what is in the file and the current status. We can see VA letters and decisions. It's especially important since the VA has essentially gone paperless, and the nationwide queue means that the claim, although filed in Michigan, could be processed at any of the VA's regional offices. I want to thank the legislature and the MVAA for the County Veterans Service Fund grant. The first year of the grant, we had 36 counties participate. This year, it looks like we're going to get approximately 60 counties who will utilize the grant. Although there were challenges the first year of the grant due to the late application, I know that the funds were used to increase awareness, increase staffing, and to fill in some of the gaps to assist veterans. Given the current crisis, many counties are redeploying those funds this year to provide emergency assistance to veterans and dependents impacted by COVID-19. On behalf of the MACVC, I want to close by saying that I'm proud of the accomplishments of our membership. We have fierce advocates who work tirelessly to serve the veterans in our counties. The veterans of our state deserve nothing less than the best advocacy, which we will continue to provide with the support of the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency and our partners throughout the state of Michigan, including the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency and the legislature. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that, Garth, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'm not sure if Congresswoman Slotkin was able to join us yet. Are you out there, ma'am?
I'm here.
Outstanding.
I'm here.
So everyone,
Yeah.
it's our pleasure. We can hear you, ma'am. There's probably going to be a slight delay because it sounds like you're on the. So everyone, it is our pleasure to welcome Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin to our panel. And Congresswoman Slotkin serves the residents of Michigan's 8th Congressional District. After graduating from school in New York City, she was recruited by the Central Intelligence Agency to be a Middle East analyst and went on to devote her career to protecting the United States from national security threats. In her role at the CIA, Congresswoman Slotkin worked alongside the U.S. military during 3 tours in Iraq as a militia expert. In between her tours in Iraq, she has held various defense and intelligence positions under President Bush and President Obama, including roles at the White House and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. In 2011, she took a senior position at the Pentagon, Until January 2017, she served as Acting Secretary of Defense for International Security Affairs. In this role, Congresswoman Slotkin oversaw policy on Russia, Europe, the Middle East, and Africa at the Pentagon, and participated in negotiations on some of the country's most pressing national security issues. So welcome today, Congresswoman Slotkin.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate the time. I appreciate being involved, and always appreciate helping to just get everyone together from the veteran community. I will just say very quickly that, as many of you know, veterans issues are a really big deal for me and for my family. I'm actually driving in the car right now next to my husband, Dave, who is a 30-year veteran of the Army. He retired as a colonel and was an Apache pilot by training. And my stepdaughter and my son-in-law are brand new Army officers right now. My stepdaughter, both of them actually graduated from West Point. And my other stepdaughter is for the VA down in Texas. So we are a service family. And there's really no group in the district, the 8th district, that I'm more committed to than advocate for than our veterans. I want to give you a quick overview of kind of some veteran-specific bills I've been working on both before COVID, but also in the wake of COVID-19, and talk about some issues that are related specifically to the community. First of all, our biggest success, I would say thus far, is before COVID was part of our lives, is a bill that was signed into law actually in March by the president, and it's called the Support for Veterans and Effective Apprenticeships Act. It's a bill that I co-introduced in the House. Senator Gary Peters introduced it in the Senate, and it was signed into law very recently, but it increases the number of training and apprenticeship programs that veterans can use their GI benefits for. In the past, there's been this big discrepancy between listed registered apprenticeships and those that you could receive approval for from the VA. So in Michigan, only a few hundred of the thousands of registered apprenticeships listed as active by the Department of Labor would have been approved by the VA. So there was this gap. Frankly, this idea came specifically from a veteran in the district. It was an idea that was brought to me, which in my experience has been some of the best ways to get legislation going is by taking something that comes directly from veterans in the community. So now you're able to, new apprenticeship programs can basically apply to register through the Department of Labor, and the Department of Labor has to provide a written assurance that they're aware that the GI Bill can be used against these apprenticeships. So it's a good bill. It's now law, and I'm super proud that we were able to get that done. But in terms of the current crisis and COVID-19, I just wanted to throw out there a few provisions of recent legislation that are aimed directly at helping veterans manage through the sort of COVID-19 era. One is a bill granting the VA the authority to continue paying GI Bill payments and monthly housing allowances to student veterans at existing rates rather than decreasing or cutting off payments as a result of no in-person classes. That was something we heard really early on from our veteran advocates in our university setting, Oakland University, Michigan State University. This one was great because it was signed into law. The other one is the Student Veteran Coronavirus Response Act, which I co-sponsored. It's a follow-up to the law I just mentioned, and it expands on it by preventing cuts to student veteran housing assistance for the duration of the COVID-19 crisis. The previous bill only covered veterans for this academic term, and this bill, which was again just signed into law at the very end of April, extends it through the life of the coronavirus crisis. And then this past Friday, I was in DC because we were voting on the latest major appropriations bill, the fifth one related to COVID-19. We are waiting for the Senate to take up this bill, and we know it won't stay exactly the same, that is for sure. Negotiations are going to whittle down this bill into something smaller, but just to flag a few of the things that we put in our bill in the hope that it strengthens our hands in negotiations. It was called the HEROES Act, which is what we passed on Friday, and it eliminates out-of-pocket costs for COVID-19 treatment under the VA health plan, and eliminates copays for COVID-19 preventative services at the VA. It increases by 25% the amount being paid to disabled veterans to assist with daily activities. It grants prior authorization for any emergency care sought by veterans at non-VA hospitals, including COVID-19 diagnosis and treatment. It provides protections for service members under stop movement orders during the COVID-19 pandemic, to cancel home or vehicle leases, cable, internet, telephone contracts, etc. There's a bunch of other things that are in there, but let me just touch upon one last issue that's been in the news lately, and this is extending, or I would say cutting short some of our guardsmen tours or service so that they don't qualify for new levels of benefits and health care. The announcement that we've heard that came through the president, that some of our guardsmen were being sent home, sent back, removed from their COVID duty. I hope it was just a cynical decision and will be reversed. Obviously, folks have been working really hard, activated. PCF Center, I guess it's now called. I've seen them all over the state doing really incredible work. And either way, one of the things we want to do is permit any National Guard or Reserve member to receive mental health care at vet centers if deployed for more than 14 days in support of COVID-19 public health emergency. The bill that we passed also on Friday has a bunch of provisions for homeless veterans as well. But the issue we're watching most closely is the one that's announced. And we're pushing back to make sure that for our activated members that they receive the benefits, the TRICARE, the support that they deserve for all of their work during this crisis. So I'm going to stop there for now. I know you probably have questions. Thank you again for including me today, and I will wait for further instructions. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Congresswoman. And during the next portion of this virtual stakeholders meeting, we're going to take some questions from our listeners and watchers. And the first one actually is for Congresswoman Slotkin. And someone wonders, what are the chances of additional stimulus money coming out of Washington, D.C. to our states?
Yeah, did you say, I broke up a little bit, additional stimulus money? Was that the question, whether we think it's coming or not?
Correct, ma'am.
Yeah, so, we voted on this bill on Friday, and, my position is I would have much preferred that to be another bipartisan negotiated bill, and that we'd be voting on something that has the full support of the Senate, the administration, and the House. That's how the first four bills were passed. We were not able to get that done. The Senate would not negotiate with us, and so we went ahead and did our own House bill. I do think that we will get something done. I just think it will look different. And the most important thing that was in that bill, separate, if I can, for a second, from veterans issues, was money, federal money, to cover lost revenue for our states and for our cities. Our cities have lost a lot of revenue because everything's been closed down. Taxes haven't been coming in. No one's paying gas tax. I mean, all of the normal revenue streams have been really curtailed. So our ability here in the state to pay for base operating budgets is really, really minimal. And I'm talking about like school budgets. I'm talking about layoffs of teachers and police, fire, first responders, public health folks, the very people that are on the front lines of this crisis. So I think that there's a lot of bipartisan support, especially from mayors and governors across the country, for an additional package. I think we'll see it because the Senate will be under so much pressure, but it won't be be as significant as the bill that we just passed on Friday. On Friday, we did include, for instance, an additional stimulus check for any American that makes under $100,000 a year. We did correct a provision that gave people $500 for each additional child under 18 who is a dependent. We expanded it to say any dependent who is 24 or under because of all our college-age kids. So we did a lot of corrections, a lot of things that were, I thought, really important. We'll see what we end up with, but money for our cities and our states is number one priority, and I think we will get a bill that looks at that hopefully in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you for that information, Congresswoman. And since I've got you on the line, we have a question from Michael, and it's for you, Congresswoman. He says, since you addressed mental health issues yesterday, I had coffee with one of my former soldiers at Rosa Parks Circle in Grand Rapids after he posted some concerning statements on Facebook. Now, most experts agree that we will see an uptick in behavioral health issues, substance use and abuse, and suicide. I believe that a simple amendment to Medicaid rules would improve access to these services for our poorest and most vulnerable veterans. This would allow veterans a choice between using local community mental health or VA services, a choice that is currently not an option for veterans. Would you be willing to talk with your senior policy advisor about creating a bill to amend this? And that's from Michael.
Yeah, Michael, that sounds super interesting. And as I mentioned, you know, a bill that has become law in my first term in Congress came directly from the district. So if it's possible, I know that one of my staffers, Chan Wakefield, is on the line here. He's my Wounded Warrior Fellow and veteran, obviously, himself. And if I can just ask Chan to circle up with you after this, I would love to figure out how to sit down and hear your thoughts. I'm open. Anything that will address mental health issues for our veterans is right in my wheelhouse.
Thank you so much for that concern, Congresswoman, and we'll make sure we connect this loop here. Now, I've got a question for Mr. Nash, Alan Nash, and it's from Tony. And Tony said, he knows you're not with the Unemployment Insurance Commission, but you are from Leo, and he's wondering if there's a better way to help our veterans who have not received their UIA benefits and are struggling. Any advice you could give them there?
Basically, he is correct. We are working closely with the unemployment agency, and as if you heard Director Donna Farino mention in a couple of press conferences, we put together a team of additional UI assistants to the tune of 600 to 700. It's a combination of staff from various programs that are working, have been working for well over a month and a half now to help bring down the wait times to be able to move claims forward faster. So we are seeing a difference. We've seen the wait times for simple password resets and to be able to activate inactive accounts. We've seen those times cut dramatically. So basically, my advice right now is just continue to try to connect with your unemployment agency professionals, and we will work to make this happen. We understand that it sometimes get frustrating, but we're working behind the scenes, not only bringing more people on, but as you know, with some of what the governor's talked about, we've simplified the process to be able to move these claims along. So my short answer is just continue to work the process, and then know that behind the scenes we are trying to make those connections happen.
I appreciate that, Alan. And I know for certain that they've quintupled the number of staff that are processing those unemployment insurance claims. So this log jam will bust eventually.
Yes.
I've got a question for Garth. Floyd from Ontonagon County, He wonders if there's an alternative plan for new hire accreditation training that is currently scheduled for August in the event that they're unable to do face-to-face training.
As far as I know, NACVSO has not scheduled an alternative. I know they had to cancel the national conference in June, which was in Atlanta, for obvious reasons, and they are looking at possibility of trying to do something, you know, online, but as far as I know, nothing has come of that. If he's a member of the Michigan Association of County Veterans Counselors, we will keep him informed on what's going on with that via our Google group. Now, whether the MVAA plans to do any accreditation training for through their organization, I'm not sure about that. Stephanie McDonald would probably be the individual that would be able to address that question.
And I can answer that question. So we do have one currently scheduled for August, so August 10th through the 14th in Lansing. We are still waiting to see if there's going to be any direction as to whether we can still hold that size gathering. But if not, we'll be looking at virtual alternatives. So we are still right now currently tracking one August 10th through the 14th.
Garth, while I got you online, Tony was, how do we get a list of those county counselors in their area?
Yeah, if they have internet access, they can go to www.macvc.net, and there's a drop-down box. You could click on Find a Counselor. There's a drop-down box which lists the 83 counties in the state of Michigan, and they click on the county that they want to go to, and it should pop up with the name and address if there's a county counselor in that office. Or in that county, excuse me.
Thank you for that. That's good to know. Director Adams, we've got a question for you out there. And we have a veteran that wonders, is there a plan in place to further assist already struggling veterans from COVID-19 who are now faced with major losses due to the historic flooding yesterday in mid-Michigan?
Thank you for asking that. So our team has been working, we've been working pretty hard over the last 24 hours to identify additional resources for Midland County. So you may or may not have heard, we've been working with counties with the County Veteran Service Fund grant to see if they would like to transfer some of their funding that they received. Maybe they were going to be doing events and some of those other types of things that are not happening now to utilize for emergency grants. So we've been working closely with Midland County. We're having conversations with some of the other surrounding counties of those affected by the flooding to see if we can get those grants moving faster in those areas. I do know that we're working to get some of the Meyer vouchers, which there was a press release gone out today that we worked closely with Meyer to create this voucher system that counties can utilize with their County Veteran Service Fund grants to put vouchers in the hands of veterans. We had heard that there had been in some areas abuse of gift cards. Maybe they weren't using them, they were selling them, giving away, things like that. So with the voucher, we know that they're getting the emergency assistance. So we're working to get some boots on the ground in Midland with not only some care packages, but also with some vouchers working through the counties that are there to help those in need. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you for that, Director. We've got a question from Tim, and he's from the Eisenhower Center. And this is probably either for Director Adams or Congresswoman Slotkin or both of you. As a healthcare facility actively involved in treating behavioral health issues, he says he worries about the ease of access to facilities such as ours through VA programs such as community care. Are any steps being taken to increase ease of access for veterans with complex care needs? He says the VAs that we work with are indicating there's a backlog of cases.
So
I think I'll let Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks.
It's for you. That's for you.
Well, I can't necessarily speak for the federal VA. I can say that I totally agree with what you're saying. I am an advocate for making sure that we can get veterans connected to community care. What I know that I've advocated for in the past, not just women veterans, but veterans in general, there's a difficulty with veterans getting for instance, they have suicidal ideations, and they don't want to go to a residential facility, but they want to go to maybe the ER. And that's problematic because it doesn't fall within the Mission Act, because that's not acute care. And they're not close to a VA, 2-3 hour drive. So then they're stuck because they're worried about having a bill. So that is something that I've advocated for when I was in DC in February, speaking with the VA and talks about increasing mental health. What I can tell you is that even on the mental health side of things, we've had conversations with the VA, and one of the responses that has come out with them is that they don't have a strategic plan at this time to increase mental health bed capacity and some of those mental health things. So hopefully there will be a light at the end of the tunnel coming out of this coronavirus pandemic, where they will see that there's a need to increase those types of things. But as of right now, I'm not aware of anything coming down the pipeline, even though that doesn't mean that it's not coming. So I know that didn't give you the answer that you were looking for, but it's the answer that I have.
Thank you, Director. Congresswoman, would you like to add anything?
I don't think so. I think that's Sanada would have a more detailed understanding of it. I mean, I think, we all know that the VA, some of the federal policy issues, when it actually comes to experiencing them and living them and using those policies on the ground, they don't always work as intended. And my only flag would be if there's specific access issues that are affecting, folks at the Eisenhower Center, if there's specific issues that you want us to attack from a federal level, please let us know. I think oftentimes you're going to be in a stronger position to understand how what was maybe intended one way at the federal level is not being implemented in a way that helps veterans. Please put us at that problem, aim us at that problem. And again, Jan Wakefield on this call is the best point of entry for all veterans issues for my office.
I will say too, along with Congresswoman Slotkin's point, is that if you have need of resources, please contact our office at 1-800-MISH-VET. We can definitely assist you in getting you connected to some of those right now resources. And one of the good things that we have in the state is we have DHHS veteran navigators who help with mental health and substance abuse issues, and we have those in each region. So I think there's about 17 in the state that work very hard. They're working with veterans on a daily basis, getting them connected to the resources that they need. So that's another resource in the interim until we get some of those other things worked out on the federal level. All right, Dave, are you still there?
I'm still here, ma'am. We fine? So another question for you, Director, is Jack wonders how much has there been an increase in the number of applications for the Michigan Veteran Trust Fund emergency grants? Maybe you can explain a little bit how the trust fund works and answer this question as to whether or not there's been an increase in applications.
Thank you so much, Jack. So yes, the trust fund is an emergency resource available for those who qualify that are wartime veterans to meet emergent needs. During a normal day or a normal week, we see calls relative to assistance with utility bills, house repairs, those types of things. So I would say that we've been trying to track some of these calls. We've seen a downturn actually in some of those calls, and those are relative to utility bills and some of the rental needs because there have been holes on those things. So people are not their lights and different things are not being cut off, which is usually what triggers the trust fund assistance in those situations. And so I suspect, though, that after this pandemic is over and utility companies and leasing companies begin to reinstitute potentially foreclosure measures or shut-off notices, we will see an uptick in that. Now, I haven't been able to follow up with the trust fund between yesterday and today to see if there's been additional calls relative to the Midland flooding, the Midland area flooding, but I suspect that also will be something that will trigger more calls. And we are prepared to answer that call. And we're working with partners such as Habitat for Humanity, already having conversations about ways that we can assist with those folks who've been impacted by flooding.
Thank you for that. And I'm going to take an opportunity here to plug one of our veteran stakeholders out there, Invest Vets. And Ryan Panliner is on the line, and he's a service-connected veteran also. And he's a board member for Invest Vets, a community-based employment-focused organization. They have relations with over 300 employers looking for vets, and anyone looking for employment can access the website at investvets.org. That's investvets.org. You can sign up to receive employment notifications via email as they become available. And there's another organization that they are working with called Suits for Vets that provides clothing for interviews and work, and the info is available through the site also for that. So we wanted to share those resources with our vets in need. We partner with Invest Vets quite often on different initiatives. So thank you, Ryan, for putting that out there for our veteran stakeholders. And next, Congresswoman Slotkin, someone is interested in your thoughts about activities, especially flag-laying activities on veterans' graves this weekend being canceled in time for Memorial Day. They said they do understand COVID restrictions, but they were curious as to your thoughts on that.
Yeah, you know, we reached out to the head of the Veteran Cemetery in Holly, where I live, just to triple check, you know, was there any events going on? Was everything canceled? Where were they? And they said they were doing, you know, a very small sort of invite-only private thing. And listen, I think this is a completely new time, unprecedented set of events, and it's really difficult to make the call on a lot of this stuff. And we just saw the governor today say that groups of 10 or under can now get together, and you know, our big 3 auto plants are opening up. We're starting to open up. We just need to make sure that we do it in a safe and responsible way. I think that activities that happen largely outdoors, where people can be socially distanced, are probably activities that are now able to happen in the next couple of weeks as we open up. And it is unfortunate that some of the restrictions that were put on just happened by coincidence to cover down over Memorial Day. You know, we know that the stay-at-home orders are on until, I think, the 28th of May, so right over this weekend. And, you know, my hope is, frankly, that by the time we get around to things like 4th of July, we're back together and obviously taking safety precautions seriously, but that we're able to go into the world in a way that manages risk. I do not believe, and I know that veterans are the best ones to understand this, there's no such thing as a zero risk scenario when you leave the house, when you go back to work. Certainly when it comes to COVID, we want to be safe, but until we have a vaccine or a truly scalable treatment, you know, it's about managing risk, not trying to get risk down to zero. So, you know, we do allow outdoor activities. We do allow folks to be socially distanced and doing their work outside. I would have liked to have seen, I think, some of that go on in honor of our veterans. But you have to yield to the folks who run the facilities themselves. We can all be Monday morning quarterbacks, but they're the ones who are responsible if people get sick and don't, you know, abide by the rules. So it is what it is, and I think we'll have to figure out our own private ways to celebrate our veterans. I know that Dave and I are certainly going to do that under the extraordinary circumstances we find ourselves in.
Dave, if I could address that, since I'm on the advisory
Thank you for that.
I'm president.
Sure, go
Dave?
ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
We were obviously very concerned about social distancing and the large crowd gatherings. So we will have an observance out at the cemetery, but it will be private. We didn't want to publicize it, but it will be posted on social media after the event. We just were concerned about a large gathering. We usually get about 3,000 people out there for Memorial Day, and that was obviously a huge concern to have that. We didn't want to have that many people in one location. So there will be an observance. Veterans will be honored, but it's just going to be in a private manner. And, hopefully this time next year we'll be, in a better place, and we'll be able to do all those things with a huge crowd and a huge celebration. But as Congresswoman Slotkin mentioned, people hopefully will still do their own observances in their own manner on that day.
Thank you for that, Garth. Director Adams, I have a couple of questions concerning our veterans' homes. Jack wonders, are staffing and resources sufficient to operate both of those veterans' homes? And Matt wonders, is the National Guard still assisting with screening at the veterans?
Thank you, Dave. So what I will say is, first and foremost, thank you for taking our veterans and our homes into consideration in your questions. I will also say that late last year, through some legislation, the homes were actually separated into their own entity and now are being run by Executive Director Ann Zerbe. And so they are operating as their own entity. And so with that said, what I would like to do is have Fred Shively, who is the representative, he's also the legislative and policy person for the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, answer those two very important questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Can everyone hear me?
Fred?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep.
We can hear you fine,
Okay,
Fred.
great.
We can hear you.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Director, for that introduction. Yeah, two very great questions. So I'll start first with the National Guard screening process. Very early on in the process, before the federal authorization for aid to the state was authorized, General Rogers acted to put Guard members on state active duty to assist with the screening at both homes. The screening process for us was very critical in our early response activities at the facilities, and it involved us screening every employee that came into the facility at the start of each of their shift. They completed an extensive health questionnaire as well as received a temperature screening. So the Guard has been very integral in our response activities. Now, kind of what Congresswoman Slotkin mentioned, as things start to transition and Guard members go off of orders and return back to their civilian life, we will be transitioning off of the Guard support around the middle of June. I think it's June 12th or 13th. We will then continue the screening, but handle those processes internal to our staff. So we're working right now to develop those plans and processes for that screening. Specific to the staffing question and resources. So staffing at the facilities continues to be strong. It has been stressed because not only are our residents at risk for COVID, so are our staff. And so those individual staff members who may have had to take leave time to go care for a sick family member or have had childcare issues, that certainly puts some stress on our staffing levels. But our staff are outstanding advocates and passionate about the work that they do for our veterans. And we really commend them for all the hard work that they've been doing during this very difficult time. So we continue to have good staffing levels. Members are receiving the care necessary while at the facility. Grand Rapids is currently experiencing more active cases than Jacobetti is in Marquette. So we do have 12 staff members that have tested confirmed positive at Grand Rapids and 8 residents. all are continuing their recovery and care, and we're following all the proper isolation. We have a separate COVID unit that we were able to activate at Grand Rapids. As some of you may know, we're getting ready to transition into the new facilities in Grand Rapids and Chesterfield. So we actually had some vacant floor space in the building that was perfectly suited for us to deploy and provide for a separate isolation unit. So we've been really fortunate on that. Supplies, provisions, PPE, just like everybody else in the healthcare industry right now, the homes have had some challenges, but the supply chains are improving, and we're getting the resources that we need. Isolation gowns continue to be one that the supply chains haven't quite picked up on, but we have gotten creative. The CDC provides guidance regarding alternative PPE that can be used. So again, we innovated every corner and every turn of our response activity of this, and the support, and just to give a shout out to Congresswoman Slotkin, the VA and the federal government through some of the stimulus programs, there's going to be resources available to the homes. The federal VA has worked very closely in partnership with us, because those of you who aren't aware, the state veteran homes are actually regulated by the federal VA. They're owned by the state, but we receive our licensing, if you will, from the federal VA, because they pay for the care that we provide. They're one of our main fund sources. So it's kind of a unique federal-state partnership at our facilities. So that's kind of the high level. Ann Zerbe is our executive director. She could not be on the call today because we had another staff meeting regarding next steps for our next phase of COVID response. So she apologizes for not being here. And just to the stakeholders, we do have bi-monthly, every other month, board meetings of the oversight board for the facility. And so those are made available to the public, and we're learning now how to do live streaming. And so that information is posted on the home's website, which is still part of the MVA website. So those meeting schedules will be posted there, and that's really the best way to get those live updates. And you can always reach out to myself or Ann if you're looking for other specific updates related to the homes.
Thanks for that, Fred. We appreciate that information. It was great to have you on. What I'd like to do now during these last few minutes is go around the horn one more time and for some parting thoughts, if you have any. So we'll go ahead and start with Congresswoman Slotkin. Any final thoughts?
Well, first of all, thanks for pulling this together. I mean, I think that the most important thing is that COVID-19 is really creating some interesting and long-standing second and third order effects. And we're just now starting to understand how they impact different groups. And I think it's just going to be really important that the veteran community be super vocal and vigilant about explaining and highlighting how COVID-19 issues, whether it's the public health challenge or the economic challenge that's coming, is directly affecting veterans, and whether there are big fixes or small fixes that would alleviate some of that burden. I think that everyone understands that we have to look out for our veterans, and that's a very bipartisan instinct that people have, certainly in Washington, and that's a good thing. In some ways, this is one of the last vestiges of bipartisan support, and we should use that and make sure we're extremely vocal. So please reach out to us, please engage us, please tell us what we're missing, and we will all figure out how to get through this. But I want to make sure we're addressing the specific needs of the veteran community. And thanks so much for having me.
It was our pleasure. We really appreciate it. Director Adams, perhaps in your parting thoughts, you could address this one last question from Ray. And he's wondering if there's any plans on trying to find resources to maintain the regional coordinator positions with the MVAA, as that role, he says, is very important in assisting veterans along with connecting resources. So maybe you can address that in your parting thoughts.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ray. So I will say that regional coordination is definitely important to us. So in the next several weeks, or few weeks actually, we'll be rolling out a core plan where we'll be pulling together several folks to actually coordinate as a team within the regions. And so more to come on that. So because we believe that outreach and putting information in the hands of veterans, their spouses, and caregivers is very important, while also meeting their mental health and substance abuse needs. So we have not ended regional coordination. The MVAA is still here. VCATs are still ever present, and we're still supporting them. So please continue to stay tuned, and hopefully if you join us at another stakeholder meeting, I can answer that question in a different way, and you'll know what's going on. I will finally say that please join us we have on May 28th at noon, we have a virtual coffee hour, which will be surrounded around caregivers, and that's really important because we'll be talking about how we can help caregivers in the state with mental health resources and financially for veterans. And on June 11th, we will also have our coffee hour at noon, surrounded around female veterans and women veterans, and in recognition of Women Veterans Recognition Day, which will be the next day on June 12th. So thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate all of the panelists and for all the insight and questions that we have. And we hope to do more of these where we can bring you all in and answer questions.
Okay. Thank you, Director. Alan, we got about a minute left, so you get 30 seconds of it, then Garth gets 30 seconds of it.
Perfect. Just to let everyone know that although VES has a very engaged outreach team, we do need your help. If you know of a veteran that is struggling, by all means, please let them know that there are services available, and that first step is to contact your local Michigan Works agency, and then we can take it from there. Again, it's going to take a team approach to solve some of the issues that's coming under this new environment. So with that, I do want to thank the MVAA and everyone who helped put this together. This was very helpful for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, Alan. Garth, parting thoughts?
I just want to remind everybody that the county veterans counselors are in your community. They're there to assist you. Even during this challenging time, probably especially during this challenging time, reach out to them if you are in need of some assistance, either with a claim or have a financial emergency, that we may be able to direct resources your way. So again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. And again, our website is www.macbc.net if anybody wants to try and contact one of our counselors.
Thank you so much, Garth. So in closing, I want to thank all of our participants in this afternoon's Veteran Stakeholder Virtual Meeting. If you still have questions about benefits and resources, services, things like that you've earned, or if you are a veteran who needs to be connected to benefits and resources, anything to do with veteran employment, health and welfare, quality of life, education, please call the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency at 1-800-MICH-VET to speak to one of our Michigan Veteran Resource Service Center technicians. Or you can visit our website at michiganveterans.com. Like the director said, join us on May 28th, where we'll be discussing issues surrounding Michigan veteran caregivers, and again on June 11th, where we will be discussing women veterans issues during this COVID-19 pandemic. So in the meantime, stay home, stay safe, and save lives. Thank you.